Hi, everybody, and welcome to week 10 of EdCo 305. This week, we're going to look at online learning in the K-12 classroom. You read Chapter 7 in your UDL textbook in preparation for this week's module. I've split your week into 3 parts like I typically do, and again, just that reminder, you can do it this way or not. I just try and break it into 3 parts to make your week a little bit easier as far as planning goes. So the first thing you need to do, obviously, I always suggest by Monday, is watch this video. Today's video is going to be approximately 15 minutes because I will be talking about the key assessment as well as the content. The key assessment part 2, which is the technology integrated activity, is due November 13th. This orange section of the learning module deals with preparing for that assessment. Just like we did with part 1, we start looking at the requirements a few weeks before the project is due. And in that way, you know how much time you need to devote to this project. You know what's going to be required. It's really important, guys, not just for this class, but for all tasks that you have to complete, that you start looking at the requirements long before they're due. So finding the documents, everything is in Blackboard under Key Assessment, but you upload to VIA just like you did for Key Assessment Part 1. All Education Core Key Assessments are uploaded to VIA. Your feedback will be placed in VIA as well as your grade. And I also put your grades in Blackboard since this course is out of 100 points. I think it's easier for you all to see all your points in one place, which is Blackboard. So feedback and score in VIA, and then I also put your score in Blackboard just for ease and convenience. Now, part 2 of the key assessment is the technology integrated activity. And you're going to be planning a content lesson. So if you're teaching elementary school, you can plan a science lesson, a language arts lesson, a math lesson. If you are a dance teacher, you will plan a dance lesson. If you are a music teacher, you're going to plan a music lesson. Special ed, if you're in high school and you're in a geometry classroom, you're planning a geometry lesson. You're planning a lesson for your content, but you're going to include technology. And the technology should provide your learners with opportunities to collaborate, communicate, create, or conduct research to learn your content in a more robust, authentic way. So in other words, you're not teaching a lesson on how to put a Google slide together, right? Like you're not teaching a technology lesson. You're teaching content with technology. Now, some of you are in internship, and if you would like to use your lesson plan, that is fine. Just make sure you have all of these pieces included. You'll have grade level subject, you'll have the standard automatically. The thing you just kind of have to make sure you have for the technology piece are these technology related standards. If you are in, your junior block and you're not in an internship, you can turn in, you can delete the words here and use this as a template. You don't have to turn it in on a lesson plan format. You may certainly use this as a template. Now, your learning objectives, you can use either Bloom's verbs or the depth of knowledge chart. Now, these are both linked here for your convenience. And then you can put in the activity description, instructional procedures, and much like your other courses, your instructions here should be clear enough that a substitute could follow the plan. Assessment. How are you going to know that your students learned the content that you are teaching? So if you're teaching a lesson on adding fractions with like denominators, how are you going to know that your students understand how to add fractions with like denominators? So don't forget to include assessments throughout your lesson. The commentary refers to this research support table below. This is where all of your research from your annotated bibliography is going to come in, very helpful. This left-hand column are the questions. The middle column is evidence from the activity plan, so you can refer to what you created here. And then the right-hand column is from your research. and you'll have research in each column. So just like you did in part 1, check if you were able to teach your technology integrated activity or if this was all hypothetical because you don't have a field placement right now. And just like with part 1, if the question could not be answered the same way by those of you who are teaching and those of you who are not, it was broken up into those who are teaching will answer this question and those who are not teaching will answer the yellow highlighted portion, okay? If there is no highlight, then you can answer the question whether you were teaching this semester or whether you were not. So you'll answer each question. Remember, here you're putting information from your lesson plan. So how did you embed Universal Design for Learning in your lesson plan? And then the right-hand column is your research. So what does the research say about Universal Design for Learning for curricular decisions? And you just go through and you answer all of these questions. How well did your students learn the content? Describe the assessments and the learner performance. Well, if you weren't teaching, describe how you would have assessed your students. Guys, your rubric is down at the bottom here. Please go through and read this. We very much use the rubric to know, not only to provide you feedback, very concrete feedback, but so that things are as objective as possible when we're assessing your work. So go through, make sure you've covered all these pieces. You can tell exactly how many points you're going to get. You could assess yourself, theoretically. Let me know if you have any questions with the key assessment. I want you to spend at least an hour this week reading through the description and the rubric. Start thinking about what you want to do for your technology integrated activity. Maybe you're going to teach the regions of South Carolina and you would like your students to work in collaborative groups of 2 to 3 and put together Google Slides on the regions of South Carolina. Now, you have lots of different options here. You can use any of the tools we've learned about in EdCo 305 or any tools you've learned about in your placements or that you've just stumbled upon yourself. All right, now we're going to transition into the content portion of this week. So we've looked at the key assessment. Now let's talk about what we are learning this week in class. You are going to be delving into online learning in the K-12 classroom. This is a fun week because you are not just going to be reading or listening to me talk, but I think one of the best parts of this class is that you really get to create things that are going to be useful to you now and or in the future. You're going to create an RLO, and an RLO stands for Reusable Learning Object. And the best thing about this is once you make it, you can use it over and over again. Whether we are in the traditional classroom or we're teaching virtually, these RLOs are helpful for all of our students. They align with the UDL framework. For example, if I'm in Brooke's dance class and she taught non-locomotor movements, and I'm just struggling with that content, I don't understand what she's talking about, I can go home, watch her screencast on non-locomotor movements, and I have more time to process and understand the information. I always think about this like when I was in algebra for the first time in middle school. If I had had videos of the teacher walking through the steps that I could watch again and again when I got home, that would have helped me a lot because I would be sitting in that classroom, listening to the teacher, understanding every single thing she said. And then as soon as I got home, everything just seemed to have flown right out of my head. So having that reusable learning object would have been very, very useful. And this week, what we're going to do is use a screencasting tool like Screencast-O-Matic, Screencastify, or something else to create a reusable learning object. So I've linked a little article here, and it's not like a research article. It's just a Common Sense Learning article. They walk you through some of the screencasting tools you can use. I obviously prefer Screencast-O-Matic. That's what I use each week. But there's Screencastify, Nimbus Capture, Explain Everything. So you have lots of options. Don't feel like you have to use the one I use. Use what works for you. That's the great thing about all these different tools. You're going to create a Google Doc just to have a place to put everything, much like I do. So this is a Google document where I put all of your stuff that you have to do for the week. On the Google Doc, put your grade level, the learning goal, and the student learning objectives. These should be related to your state standards, which I have linked here for you. You're going to create a video for one of those learning objectives. So if you're teaching, I'm just going to go back to that Regions of South Carolina example again. Perhaps your screencast is on the coastal zone region, and you're teaching your students about the coastal zone, which is one of the 6 regions in South Carolina. So I'm not asking you to put together an hour lecture. I'm thinking 5 minutes to like 15 minutes tops of content. And maybe you have to have some images put on a Google Doc first so that you can talk through the images as you're teaching your students. Maybe you want more of a whiteboard, maybe so you can work out math problems. Maybe you want something like Google Slides where you've got images of the coastal zone and you talk through each of those images and you're teaching your students the important pieces of that region. So set it up however you want to set it up. You guys are all in different content areas, so that's going to be different for each one of you. Create your screencast using one of those tools we just talked about. You're going to upload your video to Vimeo or to YouTube. Now, if you don't have a Vimeo or YouTube account, make one. I had to make a YouTube account when I started teaching in higher ed, so I had a place to put my videos. When I taught in elementary school, I had a Vimeo account where I could upload my videos. So go ahead and get your account started. It is something that will be useful to you as you continue your career in education. You will use it all the time, I promise. Link your video to your Google Doc where you've got your standards, your learning goal, the objectives, all that fun stuff. And then at the very bottom of this Google Doc, reflect upon the process. I want you to make sure you cite Chapter 7, which is all about goals and making sure your students have learned the content in this reflection. And the reflection does not need to be big, like a paragraph would suffice. Then post the link of your work to our chart, just like we typically have. I've got just a little chart here linked with the content of your work as well as the link to your Google Doc. Now your Google Doc, don't forget, will have the link to your video. I'm guessing that this will take approximately 4 hours. We're still under on your 6 to 9 hours a week. We're right here at 5. So if it takes a little bit longer, that's okay. For homework this week, please make plans to vote. We should be doing that next week. Your voice matters. You have to be participatory in this democratic society that we have. And then just a reminder, part 2 of the key assessment is due on VIA at November 13th at 11:59 p.m. Please make sure you're clear on expectations. Now is the time for you to be asking me questions way before it's actually due. I hope that you all are well. Please keep in contact with me. Send me some emails, jump into office hours, set up a Zoom meeting with me. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope that you guys are ready for the semester to start wrapping up because we are almost there. Take care, be well, be kind.